A very, very good morning, everyone. Welcome to the NSSF Financial Literacy Program. This is the 2 hours when we get into class. Welcome to class. Welcome, everyone. And for the next 2 hours, we are going to go back and study. You are going to be very good students. I need to check on your school fees. I need to do some of the housekeeping in there. And I say, how did you do the homework from the last session we had? Ladies and gentlemen, for these next 2 hours, we just compose ourselves and say, let's study money, let's study investments, let's study savings, let's study this whole thing that we wake up in the morning and go out to look for. Why is money evading me? So these 2 hours will be facilitated by good teachers who will be telling you today. Today we are going to talk about real estate, investing with confidence. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a delight for you to spare these 2 hours, wherever you are, whoever you are, to just say, let me get into the topic of money. My name is Mboa Apollo, and I am the headmaster of this School of Money. So welcome, and my job is the easiest. As you always know, it is basically to just talk, just bring in just give context to this conversation, and then hand over to the class monitor we have today, a very, very vibrant, good lady. We already in the studio. I'll tell you when that time comes in. And there's two head prefects in their own society of real estate. But before we go in, and I always want to start now, we used to do this at the end, but I always want to urge you to first start the action. So action changes things. At NSSF, we believe that action changes things. For us, we do a lot of talking. We are going to do a lot of talking. So you don't need to do any more talking. We have done the talking. We have talked ourselves out. And when we talk, fortunately for us, we get paid. If you are talking and you're not getting paid, that means you need to act. Action is the one that is going to get you paid. So let's start with the action. Scan that code. Scan that code. If you are looking, how do you pay school fees in this school? Yes, today let me share. The way we pay school fees in this school is by you subscribing for membership at NSSF. For you who is already a member, you can also subscribe to be a voluntary member, because there is nothing like over saving, as we shall continue and getting to it. So just scan that code as we go on. There's also a link that will be put in the chats. You can walk into any branch, you can go to any NSSF outlet and just ask them, Smart Life, how do I enroll? So I hope that the headmaster will be checking on those school fees remittances. The beauty about this school fees in the School of Money is the school fees you pay goes towards your own savings. So you are actually paying for your own survival, paying for your own better life. If Shadrach is kind enough to go to the next slide, as NSSF, we have set up an ambitious goal to reach 50% of the nation, 50% of the workforce in the next 10 years. We want to raise over 50 trillion in savings and have all of you subscribing with us 95% satisfied. So definitely it's an ambitious target, and we are starting with you. If you are on this call and you are not enrolled with NSSF, please go back, scan that code, go into the chats, you'll find a link, and subscribe so that you bring down that number. We need to bring that down. We need to have, in the next 10 years, 50% of the labor force needs to be covered by NSSF. When you talk about NSSF, we are the National Social Security Fund. We cannot be national if right now we are only covering 11%. We need to cover the entire labor force. If it's kind enough, because our purpose at NSSF is to make lives better by making savings a way of life. So ladies and gentlemen, join us on that purpose. Let's be of purpose to you and in your life. We hope to drive the membership to 15 million Ugandans by 2025 through strategic partnerships. So if you are out there and you have an outlet, you have a platform to a bigger audience of the informal sector, of the excluded sector, of the persons who are not yet included in the NSSF and the national savings platforms, please, would want to work with you through mass recruitment and financial education. What we are doing here is financial education, and I am glad to be the headmaster of this one. And tailored products. The tailored products we have so far is, we have Smart Life. Smart Life is a goal-based. When these gentlemen and the fair lady will be speaking about it, they will see how does it relate to real estate, because it's a goal-based and it relates to the different goals. So these are for you, and both for the formal and informal sector. That's our mandate, and we are proud. We come up every morning, we strain, we strive, we make sure that we are working towards achieving that mandate. So, what is smart life in a nutshell? Let me just take off this opportunity, if Shadrach is kind enough to go to that next slide, to tell you about smart life and then get you to get out of your way so that you can have class beginning. This is just an introduction. It's a voluntary savings product. Voluntary, the key emphasis is on the word voluntary. And it's also a goal-based savings product. So it is voluntary, meaning you are the one to elect to be part of this. You elect how much money you want to contribute, when, how often, for how long. And because of that, it's voluntary. Even at exit, it is you elect when you need to do this. The mandatory one we have elected for you, you will only access at 45, 40, 50, and 55. For this one, because you are the one, you will elect that I want to do this for 2 years, 3 years. I am 23 years, but at 25, I will want to access my money. Yes, it is possible. That is what the Smart Life Flexi product is about. If Shadrach is kind enough, and it came in by enactment of an amendment by Parliament, any person can make a voluntary. When the key emphasis is on any person, as long as you are 16 years and above, you can make a voluntary payment. Mandatories can also, even if you're on a mandatory, you can also make that payment. A member may have a sub-account for a minor. So for the ones that are below 16, they can be co-hosted by their parents. So as a parent, the next birthday gift you need to give, you have a Roshan out there and you're a Mama Roshan, please, the next birthday gift you can give is open up an account for that child. Let them reach 16 and you hand them over a gift of money, a gift of a better life. And then they say, indeed, I am a planned child. Don't just tell them those things, do them. And the minimum is 5,000. We are in the process of even bringing this lower than that. So you can contribute as and when, as long as you are 16 and you have 5,000. Ladies and gentlemen, 5,000. If you can't command 5,000, then there is something not right in this money economy. Command the 5,000 and tell it to go and save my future in the future. So ladies and gentlemen, take part of that. It gives you choice. It is affordable. It's flexible and has a competitive return. We have been averaging, because we do not know when you will take this money. This money will give you a return every month. It's a daily return and it is credited on your account every month, and then it is compounded. So it gives a compounding effect, and we have been performing at an average of 13% per annum. That money, you see it every month on your account. Who are we targeting? We are targeting the informal sector. We are targeting you in the diaspora, in the public service, the self-employed, and you who is already with us under mandatory in the formal sector. So ladies and gentlemen, for me, that excites me, because that is where we are saying we are beginning to cover everyone, 50%. But going back to the reason we are here today, investing with confidence. Allow me to hand over, and before I hand over, I always want to share a little bit. Investing with confidence. Today we are going to focus. We did investing with confidence, and we did the capital markets. Today we are doing the real estate. But before we do that, I need you to understand confidence comes with knowing. So you need to seek knowledge. You cannot have confidence, and this is speaking about confidence generally, but then we'll bring it down to investing. If you are to invest with confidence, you need to have knowledge. So are you seeking knowledge? For us, we are proud to say that this is a knowledge platform. We are going to pick from the persons who know something, and you can pick from them, and they will tell you something about this. Confidence comes with doing it consistently. You need to do, when you start, whatever you need to do it consistently. You make it a habit. So if we are going to talk about investing, it cannot be a one-off and then you think you are making it. No, it has to be a habit. Make it a habit. Confidence comes with your perspective. Confidence is your perspective of things, your attitude. So ladies and gentlemen, what I pick from these three, which were prepared by one Aisha Nakanwaj, who sits in my department, is you need to seek knowledge. have good habits and have a good attitude. And the coincidence of this, a good knowledge, good habits and good attitude, the coincidence, the consequence, let me call it the consequence of this is the money. Money will find you. Money will always find that person with good knowledge. They will know where to invest. Good habit. You are not trying to default MTN. Don't send on this number. You send on this one. And Obama, that is you can't. If you can't pay your MTN, you think you can now start investing with the big wigs. Where can they really give you 100 million if you can't pay this small money? Good attitudes. Anyways, people are saying money is lost. Lost from where? For us, we are poor. You who? It is you, not everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, and confidence without action is just noise. People can be confident, they can be confidently, and allow me to just use, you can be ignorantly confident, show up so confident, but if you do have no action around that, then it is noise. So ladies and gentlemen, let the learning begin. Christabel.
Thank you so much.
Christabel, yes. Here you reply, Sir Headmaster, sir. Yes, Sir Headmaster, sir. Christabel.
Yes, Sir Headmaster, sir.
No, again, let's do it again. Christabel.
Yes, Sir Headmaster, sir.
Yes, in this class, I am Sir Headmaster, sir. And in this class, we learn. People have taken off their morning. The people out there are waiting to hear from this panel of experts, this panel of experienced people on money. How does it relate with them? Please, take them away. Christabel again.
Yes, Headmaster, sir.
Take them away.
Good morning to everyone watching. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for actually being able to take time off your busy schedules to be part of this. Welcome to the NSSF Literacy Program, Real Estate Edition. My name is Christabel Musime, property host on the Property Show and also a property curator all real estate platforms. Now, it's really exciting to be speaking about such topics and actually getting to educate the masses about them, because these are things that we hold dear to our hearts, and this is a topic that actually resonates so much with me. So it's an honor to be here, to be able to talk to two gentlemen that have vast knowledge about these particular fields of real estate. And on set with me is Mr. Gaba Vincent and Mr. Matthew Rukari, right? I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, usually I'd love to take the honors of introducing them, but both of them are powerhouses, and I will not take that honor. I will actually request each of them to introduce themselves so that you can get to understand just how much of importance and value this edition is going to be to you. I'll start with Matthew. Matthew, please do us the honors.
Thank you very much, Christabel. Thank you very much, Headmaster Sir. Our dear viewers, welcome. Thanks for joining us. My name is Matthew Rukari. The words experts and powerhouses has been used. I hesitate to call myself a powerhouse or an expert, but I'd like to think of myself as a real estate enthusiast. Okay, I've been in the sector for over 16 years. Been at the fund for over 11 years. My initial background is in property valuation. I studied a bit of finance and then eventually joined the fund, and I'm now a portfolio manager on the real estate desk. So that's a brief introduction. I'll discuss a few more later on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christabel. Thank you, Headmaster Sir. I think we need to emphasize that. Thank you, all of you. My name is Vincent Agawa. I've been in the industry real estate for 20 years. I started with the Avats Housing Limited, 2006, and also volunteered in the Association of Real Estate Agents of Uganda as first president. And then from there, I also chaired the Real Estate Institute of East Africa Governing Council, and also I represent NSSF on the Housing Finance Bank Board, and also I also president of the Africa Real Estate Practitioners Alliance based in Ghana, Accra. I'm happy to be here, and please, real estate, I know nothing else. I cannot talk about selling tomatoes or onions. I'm here. That will be always, because I believe that real estate is the anchor for economic growth. Over to you, Christabel.
Thank you so much. So I'll get straight into it. I like today's topic. It's invest with confidence. Like Headmaster Sir said, it's invest with confidence. And why I like it is because most of Ugandans don't actually get to invest with the confidence like we said. And that is why I want us to understand what actually do we mean when we say invest with confidence. And I'll start with you, Mr. Gaba. We have developers, many right now actually coming up. They're developing properties, housing for the Ugandan, and it's always themed developments for Ugandans or affordable housing for Ugandans, but are developers actually developing housing for the average Ugandan or for the 1% of the Ugandan population?
Well, thank you, Christabel. The truth of the matter is that at the moment we have a situation whereby the value chain around housing and actually the demand side is not being addressed from A to Z. And the reason is clear, because all these are private investors and they're looking at return on investment. And when that happens is that they are looking at the margins where they are actually more lucrative, and they go into that sector because it is less risky. It is actually probably the best in terms of comfortability in order to maximize their profit. So that means that they will go for the 10% or even 30% max. They will go into the apartments and houses, which are actually to the other group, which is probably 100 million and above. They will go for rents that actually are 1.5 million and above, because they know that these people will be consistent to pay back. Now, when you go downstream to the likes of the rent of 300,000, 150, and so forth, the risk is too big for them. So what that requires is what we call public-private partnership, because you need long-term financing to do these long-term investments in order to cater for this group that actually is high risk, and also the repayment schedules are too long-term in terms of nature. But again, that also goes to the access of financing in terms of selling and buying of property. So if someone is going to get a loan from the bank at a mortgage, I mean, at the lower radar of about the incomes which are low, they will not be able to access the financing. So you do what, as a private investor, go for the higher end, who have good CBR rates, credit reference bureau rates, and then they're able to pay. So in order to carve that backwards to the affordability, you need private-public partnerships, whereby the infrastructure in terms of road networks, so utilities, are extended to the developers. Because if you don't expect a developer to come and buy land by themselves, put roads in, put electricity, put water and everything else, and then you allow them to lower the cost of the house, they will actually factor all those costs into the price at the end of the day. At that price, at the moment where they are doing it themselves, it cannot be lower to afford to accommodate the rest of the segments.
Matthew, with what Vincent has said, looking at the bracket, the percentage of what developers are feeding in with real estate, how does NSSF as an investment hub come in to actually cater for the other percentage that is not taken in? Because Headmaster, Mr. Sir Headmaster Sir, still learning that proper order of it, spoke about having even the least person who's investing 5,000 Uganda shillings. Now let's take the least person investing 5,000 Uganda shillings and categorize that age bracket from 25 to 30 years of age. How do you actually help to cater for that person when it comes to real estate investment?
Thank you for that, Christabel. So I agree with Vincent's submission. The sector, in as far as supply of product is concerned, is heavily dominated by private players who have a motivation for profit, right? So they will provide product that they deem has a high chance of success, and as far as offtake is concerned. And so yes, you're left with a segment of the market that's, for lack of a better word, underserved. But before I get to what the fund is doing in that space, allow me to give the viewers and the audience some context. Headmaster Sir said that to invest with confidence, you basically need an education. You need to know more than you do right now. So I find oftentimes when people talk real estate, they broadly speak about real estate. And if anyone is going to take something away from this today, I hope that you can understand that real estate is not just one sector. You have subsectors within real estate. Broadly speaking, there are about 6 subsectors. You have a residential subsector, you have an office subsector, you have a retail subsector, industrial, agricultural subsector. Okay, so within each subsector are different demand and value drivers, right? So the fund is a fund manager, is a pension fund. Our mandate is to collect your savings and invest it. So we play in the sectors that we believe have a good chance of return, right? So we play in the residential space, we play in the office and retail space, and within our mandate as developer, we produce product that we believe provides a positive net present value for the member, right? So in the residential space specifically that you speak about, yes, indeed, the price, the cost of a house, the inputs that go into a house are quite expensive. In our country, the burden of infrastructure is on the developer, and this accounts for almost 20 to 30% of what goes into a house. So the roads, the utilities, the water, the power, all that is borne by the developer, right? And ultimately, he has to price it in because our first mandate is the preservation of funds and the safety of those funds, right?
Yes.
So yes, the nature of the way the system is structured dictates that most of the product you build will be expensive. However, which is not to say that you talked about someone with 50 million shillings and below, right? Conversations here have begun about having more products available for people like that, right? In the past, we used to hear of Jomai and Arkwright. These are people that go into a place, get land ready, provide regular sized plots, provide the infrastructure, and then sell 50 by 100 plots. So conversations here have begun because the number one thing in the sector is trust. You need a developer that also provides vacant pieces of land, and that's something we are for sure looking into.
Both of you have talked about the issue of affordability and cost implication. So what I'd like to know, I'll start with Mr. Gaba. Does actually cost and affordability correlate? Can they ever coexist? Because Matthew just said right now, the cost of production, the cost of construction, all that is high, relatively high, and it all has to be factored down to the final cost. So how do we actually get the two to coexist and relate?
Christabel, in my view, cost and affordability can coexist, but the bottom line is that real estate investment is a multi-sectoral sector in terms of how you flow that affordability and cost management. Let us give an example. To put up a structure, one is you have 30% of the cost of land involved into that. But again, you have all these partnerships to do with utility companies, telecom companies to bring internet. Today, we are in the digital era. You know, we need to build houses that actually are internet friendly. You have the issues to do with, for example, road networks. So the question would be, can we deliver a satellite city, for example, that has characteristics of, for example, a central business district, high-end, middle-range end housing, lower-end housing, up to warehousing in the outskirts and the agricultural land around it. Because when you're looking at actually human settlement, you need to look at that whole value chain. So when you're building an estate, you must also cater for housemaids,
yes,
security guards, because those guys are going to be working in the high-end part of the housing. So to do that, the planning becomes crucial. So even if we are going to have what we call institutional investors or developers, whom we need urgently, by the way, because if we are going to build for both levels of the society, we need to get away from individual constructions. Vincent Agaba wakes up today and puts his own structure somewhere, and then Christabel does the same, Kyle does the same, and so forth. We need to go to institutions. That's why, for example, NSSF and other National Housing and Construction Company, Housing Finance Bank becomes very critical institutions in that space. So that you have an institution like National Housing and Construction Company or any other private offloading 1,000 units of housing in a certain given location. And those 1,000 units must have characteristics of accommodating the whole segmentation of the income levels. Studio, 1-bedroom apartment, self-contained, 2-bedroom apartments, 3-bedroom apartments, mansionettes, villas, up to the business district, whereby now we have servicing of that estate, where banks come and open an ATM, where telecom companies put service center, where all these things happen, restaurants and so forth. Now, in that way, you have addressed the issue of affordability and cost management, because you have mass scale, but at the same time, you are bringing now institutions that matter. For example, that area must have an administration, local government administration. So the local government must be interested. The Ministry of Works must be interested to extend access in terms of road network in that area. URA, who is going to be collecting taxes because now you have opened a new consumption area, you have also opened a new urban area, must be interested, should hook in. You should get to UDCL interested. You should get National Water and Water and Sewerage Corporation interested. You should get MTN Airtel interested in that area. Now, you can tell me how many people need to be in a boardroom to think about that neighborhood before it actually starts. That is how you lower the cost of construction. That's how you bring affordability. But this silo development of individuals and private and so forth, my friend, sometimes you see situations whereby tails have just been made and then National Water comes and cuts them because they
have to pass
a pipe of
piping.
water. That is lack of coordination in there. So for me, I'm all for institutional real estate development. Go to a neighborhood, open it up, have all these in place, and then build massive. And that way we can lower the cost, but make sure that even a student who has just finished university working at NSSF can already apply through the bank to have a studio. And as they get married, they graduate into a one-bedroom. As they get 2 children, they go into a 2-bedroom. That value chain. And then at the end of that chain, you open up a secondary market of reselling. So that the one, when he moves from a one studio, sells it to another one who is coming.
Coming in, yes.
Now you have created a secondary market along the way. The mortgage banks will work, the developers will build more. It's something that you cannot do at a single hand. If we keep the way we are doing it, I'm telling you, it's going to be very far for us to reach.
Currently, 70% of our market is actually doing single-hand developments. We have proper developers, but they're too much into the private sector. They have failed to actually come and partner or collaborate with the institutions we currently have. He speaks of mortgages. Currently today in Uganda, our mortgage is at a 2-digit figure rate, which is high. I will not actually mention because there's competition with banks, but still, even with that stiff competition going on, that percentage is still high for the average Ugandan. And the average Ugandan is 80% of the Ugandan today. That's the average Ugandan. What is NSSF as an institution, Matthew, doing to actually support contributors who are trying to see that they gap the housing deficit gap that we have? Because we are currently at 2 million units. And that number is not truly verified because for the last 4 to 5 years, we have been at 2 million units, but the population keeps growing on a daily basis. So what is NSSF doing to actually substitute or contribute?
Thank you for that. I fully align with the view that collaboration would get us one step closer to this holy grail being affordable housing. So we talk about affordability and cost. The way the fund is thinking about this challenge is on 2 fronts. Okay, there's a demand side of the equation. On the demand side of the equation, you just highlighted the cost of financing a home, right? Right, that directly affects the demand of product. And the supply side is what Vincent hinted at. Okay, you need more institutional developers out there. Government needs to do their part in terms of the right policy to incentivize these institutional developers. So if you think about it from that perspective, the demand side of the equation and the supply side of the equation. And for our viewers out there, for everyone to know, the fund is actively engaging on both sides of that equation. On the supply side, we are actively building product, right? And we believe that if we collaborate with other people, we can even have more product available. You mentioned 2 million housing deficit, that's only growing, perhaps by over 100,000 units plus. So we single-handedly cannot deliver enough product for the demand out there. So the thinking is, let's leverage. We have a program called the Off-Taker Program. And what we're effectively doing is providing forward purchase agreements, which are off-take guarantees to private developers build. So part of the asset class has an inherent market risk. So private developers out there are worried, is my product going to get bought? Okay, so up comes the fund with a massive balance sheet, says, you know what, I give you a guarantee that I will buy your product once complete. What does the developer do with that guarantee? He goes to the bank and gets slightly favorable financing terms for his construction loan. And then he builds the product, 200 homes, and at turnkey, the fund pays him what he's owed, and then he goes and does the same thing in another location. So we actually sent out an expression of interest. We have about 8 farms that have shown interest. So the way we do it is we don't give anyone a guarantee, okay? So we go through a very robust process of ensuring that whoever we give our guarantee to has the ability to build. Quality, on our end, we have a supervising consultant who will ensure that quality is met. So that way we are supercharging the supply side of the equation using our very strong balance sheet. On the demand side of the equation, you mentioned high interest rates for mortgages. And yes, that's a frustration. They're very high for a number of reasons we probably can't get into right now. But they're high. Okay? Borrowing from a bank is high. There are less than 10,000 mortgages in the country. Less than 1% of our GDP is our mortgages. So we fully acknowledge, we fully recognize that it's difficult. We have a policy at the fund that has been approved. It's called the rent-to-own policy. We're currently in the process of doing the actual regulations to operationalize it. And basically what we're saying is we will give you the option to live in a house and pay rent, right? And part of you will effectively be, it's like a capital lease. Your payments will be going towards the ownership of the home. You'll be renting to own it eventually.
To own it, yes.
There'll be an effective interest rate, obviously, on that, because as opposed to giving me 100 million shillings up front for the product, you're giving it to me over 10, 15 years. But the hope, and the conversations are happening, is that the effective interest rate will be less than the current mortgage rates. So yeah, so that's what we're doing.
When you spoke about rent to own, it's a fascinating concept. It's interesting. Many Ugandans are actually buying into it today, and many Ugandans are up for it. But still, the rent to own concept still caters. Okay, I won't be biased to the percentage it caters for. Maybe I'll say it caters for a 50% percentage. But the 50% percentage it caters to is the same percentage that can actually afford to purchase a property. Now, when I look at NSSF, or when I look at Mr. Gaba seated right in front of us, what I'm looking at is the Ugandan that actually can't afford to purchase a property, because that's the Ugandan that we should have in mind. What then if the rent, because I'll give an example. Most Ugandans today are living in unurbanized settlements. They are living in settlements that are not actually to standard today. But then when you look at the rent value, let's look at Machinde. Machinde then, I think 5 years ago, was a very affordable place to live. Actually, most people called it a ghetto, a slum. Currently today, when you go to Machinde, you cannot find a 1-bedroom unit less than 1 million Uganda shillings in a proper settlement, in a proper understanding settlement. So what are we actually doing with that rent to own? What are we doing to actually subsidize it to make it more affordable also?
I mean, 100 million is 100 million, yeah?
Yes.
How you decide to finance 100 million doesn't change the fact that 100 million is very expensive for so many people.
Exactly.
So back to the point Vincent made about the inputs. What goes into, why is it 100 million to begin with, right? There's the land component, there's the infrastructure component, there's the inputs that go into it. Currently, the current, let's say, tax regime, for residential products, your VAT isn't recoverable. So it's a final cost for the developer. For workers' house, I can recover, right? So you built workers' house and then you recovered the VAT that you put into it. For the residential product at Temangal or War, it was a final cost. So that ended up being. So now the fund is actively engaging the policy people on the tax front. Make that point again and again, because suddenly a product would be 18% cheaper if the VAT component wasn't part of it. The infrastructure, if you're talking up to 20%, okay? Previously, you have a vacant piece of 50 acres, and then I build 300 homes on the 50 acres. Before, the local council wasn't collecting any taxes when it was a vacant piece of land. In more developed markets, there's a collaboration between the developer and the municipal council. The council says, I will give you all the property rates that new development is paying for the next 10 years to subsidize the infrastructure investment you made. So as opposed to going to the national water or whatever to ask for the money you put in the roads and the power and the water, you just have it effectively reimbursed to you by collecting the taxes for a period of time. Those conversations are also happening. So again, the goal is to reduce the 100 million to something a bit more manageable. I don't want to put a figure to it, but progressively move by affecting the supply side of the inputs that go into your house, right? So that's the thinking.
We speak of supply side, Mr. Agaba, because yes, we do agree, real estate is subsectioned. It has different sectors to it. It's just not the housing. And when we talk about real estate, like Matthew said, most of us focus on the housing aspect of it. But it has right from the production to the retail, to the end product, to the commercial, to finally the housing aspect of it. But when we look at the supply bit of it, right now, whereby we would be saying, okay, given we're having this housing deficit gap, we are having these issues with housing in Uganda, with investment in housing in Uganda, how about if we start from the supply angle of it? Because that's where the biggest problem comes from, the supply. But we still look at construction materials, and still these are absolutely highly priced. Okay, what are we able to do as institutions or as support from partners to be able to say that we start with this immediate part that actually affects the end result? What is being put in place to actually mitigate that?
Thank you, Christabel. I think to unlock that question, our job would be to understand the linkage between the housing sector and industrialization. Where we are sitting now, if you look around this room, I think 80% of what makes this room is made in a factory. You're talking about the wiring, you're talking about the tiles, you're talking about the steel, you're talking about the bricks, you're talking about all these kind of things. So what does this say? That if you switch on housing, you're actually switching on industries to produce. The Uganda clays of this world, the roofings, the goodwill, all those will be in production once housing as a demand side switches on. So in practice, if you want industrialization to work, manufacturing to work in an economy, housing is the first actually sector that actually consumes a lot of what is manufactured in the factories. So what I'm saying here is that to do that, then you need also to tackle the industries. You see, we have the Namave Industrial Park. We need to go back down and say, look, how do these industries that have gone to Namave Park produce more? Let them get, for example, tax holidays. Let them get all these benefits to produce more. But as you do that, you need to do something on demand side. Because it's not something that you can do one and have the other one hanging, because it will feed into each other. So as materials are becoming affordable, the uptake of the product of the housing on the other side needs to be affordable also. So my still emphasis is that if we need, because when you're doing housing, you're talking about urbanization. You're talking about rural urban migration, the population increase of the country. You're talking about explosion of people running away from the villages. We have declared cities, and you can see how many people are living in the suburbs of these cities. The question is, where are they staying? Where are they taking children to school? Where are they going to worship on Sunday? Where are they going for conferences in those areas? These are issues of infrastructure development and industrialization on the other side. So yes, we can agree and say, look, if you had materials affordable, roofing is not going to lower the cost of making steel when they are not supported. They need to be sure that actually there is a deliberate effort for them to produce mass scale, but there is NSSF who is opening up another neighborhood on the remaining land in Lubowa. And then to open up that remaining land in Lubowa, NSSF needs to be supported by the Sabagabo municipality to do what actually has said. That Magawa, that municipality, Sabagabo, be ready to talk the language and say, look, we are bringing this development into our municipality. One, it's going to increase our revenue collection. Two, it is going to bring the municipality to a certain level of development. Three, it will create jobs because all the plumbers, the electricians, the carpenters, the tailors, everyone will be actually doing something around that estate in terms of development.
Yes.
That conceptualization of that process in terms of planning and appreciation by local governments, by the private sector, by the pension funds, by the insurance companies that are going to insure these products, by the mortgage banks that are going to finance and collect, that needs to happen. If that doesn't happen, I'm telling you, even if we talk about cost production, affordability is going to happen for a long time. So what am I concluding with is that for example, the person below 50 million here, I think there is a role to play. I mean, real estate, as he said, we look at it from one angle, but there are professionals in there. You can participate in the real estate sector as an architect. Be a good architect and design good houses. A land surveyor. Make sure that actually you are a land surveyor who does really proper land surveying. If you are, for example, a plumber or an electrician or a real estate manager, manage well. So entering real estate, now you are here, Christabel, you're a host of a TV program on property. You are a player in the real estate sector.
Yes.
So for the savers of NSSF, real estate does not mean that you have to build Uganda house. No, start somewhere else and walk slowly towards Kampala Road, because you have a piece of land somewhere in the village where you come from. There is a trading center there. Build a good mall in your trading center, or build a nice affordable housing there for people to rent. As you progress and grow, keep coming into the city center and so forth. But if you dream to start with, for example, a plot in Kabalagala, you may not actually enter because the cost will be very scary.
Yes. Now, let me briefly take the gloves off. From the time we started this session, I've been having my gloves on. So let me briefly take the gloves off for this next question to both of you. We understand that, yes, we need the architects, we need the surveyors, we need the managers and all these that fall into the sectors of real estate. But as a country, as Uganda, I keep saying this and I'll forever say it, agriculture is good. It's a good platform for us. It's a good money investor for us. But Uganda's cash cow that we're still stood on is our real estate industry. It's still virgin territory that we just haven't learned how to tap into. And now when you look at architects, I'll first start with architects. We have a body that governs them. But Mr. Gaba, be honest, how many architects can actually draw something on paper and bring it to ground and it's actually performing on ground? Most of the architects we have today will give you wondrous, designs, something beautiful. But when you put it on ground, it's not functional. So who is to blame for that if we have to start with the smallest person in the sector?
I think what you're saying is critical, because that's how most of the buildings have no plans. The issue is the cost, and the issue is also the usability approach to things. So what do we need to do? What we need to do is, of course, increase the professionals, allow more architects, because the higher the supply, the lower the cost. So if you have few architects in the country, they are going to be so expensive, and when they become so expensive, the population cannot afford them. But the other side is...
We do have the architects, actually.
Okay.
The universities are churning them out.
Yes.
Year after year, they are churning them out.
Yes.
But are they actually educating them the right way? Are they actually educating them according to our infrastructure, according to our landscape, according to our design as a country? Is that what they're giving them? Or are they churning them out with Pinterest ideas? Are they giving them the evolution of the Western world? Because yes, we want to be like the Western world. I would like us to be like Kenya, because right now Kenya's infrastructure and web development is way ahead of us. I'd like us, no, why am I going to Kenya? I would like us to be like Rwanda, Vision City. When we look at Vision City, how it's been put up. But are they actually giving them the right knowledge and equipping them with the right knowledge before they churn them out?
No, again, it is the issue of collaboration. You understand? If we had what we are talking about, that we are having a master plan for example, I will use your land in Luboa, because you still have a big chunk of land annexed to the development there. If we sat in this room and we made sure that every professional and every stakeholder is on the table before the design is done for that project, their architects will also be thinking alongside the developer in terms of what is needed for the consumption. Now, the issue, what I'm thinking is about the issues of working in silos. It's very dangerous, because even these guys, when they come from university, they need contextualization. All of us, we studied in the university, but we had to go for internship, we had to go for industrial training, we had to go into field over time to adopt. Now, what I'm seeing in our industry is that I'm a developer, I sit with my architect, I tell them what to do, and they go and develop. What they're developing is not actually at mass scale. So they will develop what they know. But if we are developing things to know that there is an issue of human settlement, this is not an issue of just housing. It is an issue of urban planning, even thinking about the sewage. How will the garbage be collected along in that area? How will the sewage work? Where will the sewage lines be? Real estate is not just something to do with I build an apartment, because you can see our city is full of septic tanks.
True.
The question is that sustainable? We are just close to a very big lake in the region. So whatever goes in the ground automatically will end up in Lake Victoria. So what is our state? A national water and sewage control is supposed to be dealing with that sewage treatment. So your architect whom you are talking about should also be thinking about sewage. Should also be thinking about the roads, should be also thinking about the interaction. And we should also be able to have the forecast of the people in a certain area. UBOS should be on board. We should be following the statistics of UBOS. How is Wakiso going to grow in the next 5 years? So whatever we build there, we are prospecting that actually the road infrastructure we are putting there is going to be 30 years capacity. Kololo is changing into high-rise. Is the infrastructure changing to accommodate Kololo high-rise, which was intentioned for residential areas on a half acre of land?
Yes.
Now, this is an issue of urban planning. This is an issue of architecture. This is an issue of construction, civil engineering. This is an issue of pension funds, insurance, and so forth. It is a complex situation, but the hope is not lost. That's why we need institutions like, for example, the Real Estate Development or Real Estate Authority. It's an institution that actually oversees this sector, anchored in the Ministry of Land and Housing, with technical people who know about this kind of thing. But if we don't do that, everyone will do what they need, do what they think, and we shall keep saying who should solve the problem. We need an institution that looks at this sector and says, where do we go from now? The issue of jam, the issue of traffic jam are coming. I will give an example from here. 15 years back, Kiwatuli, you would go and move and up and down. But today, up to Namugongo, all the way toward the center, you can spend about 3 hours in jam. Now, that's an issue of housing. It's not an issue of just the roads. It's also an issue of housing, because when people were building and scattering, so people moved faster than the infrastructure.
Yes.
Now, you have to struggle now to follow to push infrastructure where people already are. It's costly and compensation. It's costly in every jam. So it's urban planning.
But looking at urban planning, I'll talk about KCA briefly, looking at urban planning. We have, of course, Ministry of Lands that is in charge of that. They have to look at that. We also have KCA that has to also look at that. Now, as an institution like NSSF, how are you actually seeing to it that you partner with these other institutions to work upon this? Because we look at your estate in Temangalo and the one in Lubowa. Lubowa, I will reserve my comments for now. Let's look at Temangalo. That is relatively, affordable or investment confidential, and a confident investment currently for a Ugandan. When we look at Temangalo, NSF got to Temangalo, like Vincent said, before development got there. And I get the misconception that we say when we develop in an area, then development will come to that area. I actually agree with him, whereby I believe the infrastructure development is supposed to get there before development gets there. Now, how are you actually partnering with such institutions to make sure that this is worked upon? Because if I ask right now, we'll look at Dubai. In Dubai, you can walk into their real estate offices or any developer who's developing, and they have the master plan of Dubai, how it's supposed to look like. Same as Chigali. Chigali has the master plan of Chigali when you're going into these real estate offices or these investment hubs. If I walked into NSF today, would you show me where Kampala's master plan is if you actually want me to invest my money confidently in real estate? And I asked you, and I just from the tip of my head said, okay, Matthew, you want me to invest my money, but where am I investing it? Where is the master plan of Uganda? Where is the master plan of Kampala?
Valid points, valid concerns. Before I answer that, allow me to backtrack a bit. Let's not... I'd like to push back. As soon as you took your gloves off, you attacked the architects.
I didn't attack them.
I think you've had one bad experience.
No, I didn't attack them. It was just a concern of what we have on ground today.
Okay, just a few comments on that. What people need to understand, because this is a financial literacy show. The previous show was about how you can invest in the capital markets. Okay, so the capital markets will provide you with financial assets, right? paper assets. You have bonds, lending to government. You have shares. Okay, you're buying equity stake in listed companies, right? All I need to invest in MTN is or buy a bond is one financial advisor seated from across the table. Real estate, on the other hand, is in the bracket of real asset, right? And the consumers of this show need to fully understand that it's such a multidisciplinary sector, right? I can't get advice from just one person if I'm going to commit funds to the sector, right? If you think about it broadly from two perspectives, the acquisition process I go through and the development process. Some people might just want to buy a vacant piece of land, hold on to it for a bit and sell it at a future date. In that case, he didn't have to interface with an architect. But which professions did he have to interface with before the actual acquisition decision, before executing the acquisition? You would hope, I hope people take away from this that he has to engage with the land surveyor.
True.
He has to open boundaries. He has to ensure that there are no encroachments. He has to engage with a lawyer. He has to carry out a title search. He has to ensure there are no liens or encumbrances on the title. And he also has to engage with the value, right? Because in my mind, the difference between a smart investor or investing with confidence and what's the opposite of that? Let's call it a speculator, is the guy who invests with confidence went through the trouble of engaging professionals
of doing their due diligence
in the decision-making process. While the speculator, based on his auntie's cousin's sister's advice or something, or just some gut feeling that that piece of land will double in value in time. So in my mind, the difference between the two people is someone who actually engaged professionals. So in the acquisition process, your lawyer, your land surveyor, your value, right? So to say a house or a unit is substandard is also because of one profession's fault. It might be a bit misleading. So much input goes into it. On the development side of things, some people engage architects differently. I just want a plan. Just give me the plan. I pay for the plan. Go ahead and leave. Or I want a plan, but I also want you to supervise the construction. I.e., I want a team of professionals under you. In which case, your terms of engagement with that architect are different because now his mandate is to get the engineers, to get everyone and be the general contractor and build for you. Okay. Now, also, before you get to the concept of what's going to be built, your valuer is giving you opinions on what they call the highest and best use for a given piece of land, right? Assuming it's in a residential area, what are your motivations? Is it to live in that house forever? Is it to live in it for 5 years and then sell it? In which case, if you're going to sell it, you can't be too involved in personal design, because if you're going to sell it, then you're hoping that the mass market finds it appealing.
Appealing, yes.
Right? So you need input from the valuer, what kind of product sells, right? And then that input is in collaboration with the architects during his design period, right? So just to pack that, and also all these professions are part of self-regulating bodies, right? And the idea behind self-regulating bodies is that they hold each other accountable. And every year, I don't give you a practicing certificate for 5-10 years. I give you an annual practicing certificate because you met the ethical requirements, the professional fiduciary responsibilities, that every year you are, because any one of you can bring the entire organization or entire profession in disrepute. So self-regulating bodies, in my opinion, in this country work very well. And if I had to hazard a guess, 90% of the problems that consumers or investors face are because they didn't engage the right professional. You got an engineer to do the architectural plans, or you got a guy who has done it for my cousin to do everything for you, start to finish, right? So my advice, at least, would be engage the professionals depending on your motivations for entering the space. And so back to your latest question, which is how are we collaborating? Are we indeed collaborating with the local authorities and the planning authorities? Yeah, there's a Greater Kampala Metropolitan Master Plan out there, okay? But remember, master plans are one thing. Deciding on the specific highest and best use for a given piece of land is another exercise entirely, okay? But yes, all these entities do engage us. We have 843 acres in Nsimbe. If you Google Earth it, that green you see in that particular area is just NSSF land. So the master planning of that entire section can't be done without our effective input. And credit to the local planning authorities, they have engaged us multiple times. They get DFIs to invest in feasibility studies and master plans, and we are part of those conversations as well. And in all our large tracts of land, we either have a master plan already in place or are in the process of developing a master plan. You have 490 acres in Temangalo, 550 residual acres in Lubowa, and 800 in Nsimbe. So all those, 50 in the Bukere area, so all those will eventually be master planned, because you're right, you need the right, because you have different uses. You have residential, you have retail, you have schools and social infrastructure. All that needs to be well planned and coexist seemingly. Seamlessly. Yeah.
If we have the master plan in place and assuming we are doing the right thing, we're developing according to plan, or we're actually partnering and coexisting with other investors and other institutions and platforms, I will go to the commercial aspect of real estate. Why is that in Kampala today? Let's just look at the CBD alone. Why is that we have 50% of commercial buildings in Kampala unoccupied, 50% unoccupied? And I'll ask this, Mr. Gaba, why is that 50% of these commercial buildings are unoccupied? If we are assumingly doing the right thing somehow, we are planning for the community, for the towns, we are partnering with the right institutions, we are finding ways to finance these properties. Why is it the end user is actually not appreciating the product being given to them?
Thank you, Professor. I think, again, that is part of the ecosystem. We saw an exodus a few years ago of the CBD here, people going out of the CBD into skirts of the Kampala, places like Bugolobi, places like Muyenga turning into office buildings. And when you ask me why, one of these is just mobility. You have a building on Kampala Road, and of course the ground floor and the second floor gets occupied. And of course, if you have the upper spaces, they're empty. Why? Because sometimes it's because of how you access those buildings. So accessibility becomes an issue. So if I'm going to be in CBD and I'm taking 2 hours or 1 hour in traffic to move up and down, and probably I could have an office in Muyenga, whereby if I stay a bit in Muyenga Bukasa, I can just spend 15 minutes to reach my office and do my own things. So accessibility becomes critical, number one. Number two, again, the issue of feasibility studies is critical. He talks about the professionals. When we are doing these feasibility studies, we are doing them with professionals. We are looking at what is needed. For example, if I have a building in Kampala, should I put there another commercial office space, or should I put a complementary building that actually complements the office space that is already there? You cannot grasp that if you have not done a feasibility study. So on the feasibility study, you need professionals. So appreciation of the professionals becomes critical, because at the end of the day, once you have done a feasibility study, then you can engage. Even in a feasibility study, there should be actually an artistic impression done by an architect on board. So you have consultants on board, an architect, you have a land surveyor, you have a real estate manager. You build a team to do that feasibility study. They can look around and see. So one of these has been oversupply of space. The other one is the cost. You need to understand the business community. Our SMEs on average, I think a handful can afford above 50 square meters of space. Beyond that 100 square meters of space, or $15 per square meter, many SMEs cannot afford that kind of rent. So when you're putting up a building and you have 500 square meters of space, which business community are you targeting to come and offload that space? That's a feasibility study issue, because you will have a few corporates of this in the telecom, in the insurance, in the finance, banking sector, and probably a few other consultants, audit and accounting, law firms a bit, but beyond that, you are really exhausted. And then any space above 50 square meters, you will struggle with it for at least a year, looking for a tenant to take it up. So you look at the diplomatic agencies and all these groups, how much space do they occupy? So if you have more than a floor of about 1,000 square meters and you want to rent it in a bulk, which client are you targeting? So you will find yourself, you need partitioning of 50 square meters, 35 square meters, 40 square meters. But when you do that also, it increases your management cost, because the more tenants in the building, the more the overheads and operations around how to manage these tenants. So that's why you see some buildings, they don't want to take small tenants. They would rather leave the building empty, waiting for that big tenant. Because the operational cost around managing it becomes bigger. So there is a lot of mathematics behind it. And that's what causes actually all these buildings to find them empty, and some of them. But again, the biggest factor is people are moving out of the CBD because of the congestion. So now we need to sort that.
Now,
when we are developing new...
I'll get back to that because of the congestion, which goes back to the master plan. But for now, I'll not go back to that, because if we did have a master plan in place and these institutions were actually doing due diligence or were actually one unit together partnering, then we would not have had the congestion in the city, because the capital city is not to be Kampala. It used to be Entebbe at one point. We moved from there to Kampala to reduce on the congestion. But instead of actually reducing on the congestion, we went 360 and just made it worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so that we'll not discuss that today.
No,
maybe
just to mention, and the congestion comes also for parking space, because now parking becomes less. People start realizing that actually driving and looking for parking in town becomes an issue. So
it's an issue.
Why would I not go to Zambia and convert a residential house into an office, have myself parking, reach easily, and settle there? But when you're doing that, you're denying, for example, workers' house, or you're denying church house
tenancy. Now, we have a few questions coming in, and this is directed to Matthew. If I'm investing with NSSF and I'm investing 1 million and below, how are you actually going to be able to help me invest my money in real estate? For example, fe abakola obuzigo. In Uganda, for those that do, who would help me? Buzigo in Uganda is, in English, is what? Informal housing?
Yes.
Okay, let's take it as informal housing. For those that do informal housing, how are you actually going to support them? Because the biggest market in Uganda is actually looking for informal housing. How are you able to support them as an institution?
Okay, so is the motivation to buy, to live in the informal housing, or to have a portfolio of informal housing?
An investment.
An investment.
But they can only afford informal housing.
So like Headmaster Sir mentioned in his introduction briefing, the fund, after the recent amendments, was given the mandate to create products, create new products. And one of those new products was the Smart Life Flexi products, which is effectively a voluntary saving product that allows for contributions from as low as 5,000 shillings. Okay, so 1 million is already way above what I can accept, what I'm willing to accept. Okay, so investments, broadly speaking, doesn't matter what investment. All you're effectively doing is giving up cash up front for the promise of future cash flows, right? Whether it's in real estate, whether it's in fixed income, whether it's in equities. Now, if someone desires to have exposure to real estate because they fully understand that it gives them something different from fixed income and from equities, and so the options available to him are what? Houses that have been built, large tracts of land. Now, in other developed markets, because land in this space is highly fixed, less divisible. Just the other week, I was at a breakfast meeting organized by the Capital Markets Authority, and conversations on real estate investment trusts are being had. So regulations have been in place since 2017, but we haven't had a REIT listed onto the market. Now, a REIT, just broadly speaking, for the viewers that don't know, is effectively a company that has an underlying portfolio of real estate assets. Workers' House, I can't afford it. It's 80+ billion shillings. But assuming Workers' House was in a portfolio of assets, and that company issues shares. So I can own a piece of Workers' House, right, through the listed REIT. Okay, so it's traded, and my 1 million shillings can effectively buy shares in Workers' House, and then I can receive a portion of the rental income that is being paid. Okay, so the Capital Markets Authority, credit to them, is met with different developers, fund managers. NSSF was invited to have a conversation about how can we get the first REIT onto the market? How can we make exposure to real estate more accessible to the common investor, right? How can we, what incentives and what regulatory, what policy reforms need to be made to allow for this to happen, right? And with more conversations like that, I'm sure we're one step closer to a REIT that's listed with a fantastic set of assets. They could be residential assets, commercial assets, whatever the case may be. Now, back to the Smart Life Flexi product. So let's assume you did indeed give me your 1 million shillings, as opposed to going and buying shares in the REIT, and I'm saving, right? I'm keeping your money in the Smart Life Flexi because it's a voluntary product. Like Headmaster said, it's now earning a very competitive interest rate. So your 1 million shillings will now start earning interest. Conversations have already begun about how, because the idea is goal-based savings. And if you're part of this Smart Life Flexi ecosystem, you'll be able to save towards, our hope is, a house at some point, right? That's some of our housing products. Now, in the market, and Vincent will tell you, when you give a developer 10 million shillings before he's done with your house, you do not earn the accrued interest on that 10 million shillings.
Yes.
While in our case, assuming that 10 million shillings was in a Smart Life Flexi, after 1 year while we're building your home, your 10 million is now at least 11 million shillings, right? So that's a product we're thinking about. But also, maybe not just housing products, right? If you've been working 2-3 years, you've saved some decent money, and in your mind, you're 5, 6, 7 years away from getting married and starting a family, and in your mind, all you need right now is a 50 by 100 plot. Conversations have begun about increasing the number of products to appeal to a wider group of people that want exposure to real estate.
One of the viewers is saying,
yeah,
they understand the bit of voluntary saving, but if they're 40 years and the age clock is ticking and they're earning less than 1 million, how are you able to help them actually achieve the dream of becoming a homeowner if that 1 million is not all they can save, but half of that 1 million is what they can save?
Again, which ties back to our earlier conversation. We are not taking the structural deficiencies of the market and saying, you know what, it's just a difficult market to be in. You know, like Vincent said, we are pushing hard on the collaborations. We're pushing hard on how do we affect the demand side of the equation by operationalizing a rent-to-own model that becomes more affordable, but also how do we affect the base, that 100 million, How do we make it 80? How do we make it 70? How do we make it progressively cheaper, right? By continuously engaging with all the different stakeholders in the sector, and they're multiple, right? So the fund we're going beyond our primary mandate, which is just the safety and the growth of your funds, and actively engaging. We have a real direct dialogue with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Tax Policy Department, having conversations about that VAT and how it needs to be recoverable for residential products, all in an effort, again, to reduce the house by a further 18% and so on and so forth, right? Submitting proposals about the infrastructure rebates that can make the houses even cheaper. So yes, so what I would advise, he's 40, it's taking, there's a book, and at the end of let me preempt Headmaster. He asks what book recommendations, and I'd highly recommend Richest Man in Babylon for most people, because the principle in the book at the start or throughout the book is not how much you actually earn, but the discipline of putting 10% aside. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And progressively growing it to, and eventually putting that saving to profitable use. That is the principle of the book. So it doesn't matter whether you're at 40 million or 2 million or 400 million. If you're not putting aside a portion of it and prudently allowing it to grow, then your chances of outliving your assets are high. And that's what we're trying to avoid. The prudent investing now minimizes the probability you outlive your assets. So my thinking is take full advantage of the Smart Life Flexi, keep a lookout for the different products that we're going to put onto the market, and keep pushing us to engage the policy and the regulators and to make the sector better and more accessible and more feasible for the common man.
Matthew, for the person in the private sector, what is the percentage they have to pay to NSSF when it comes to their monthly income?
5% is their personal contribution, and then 10% is their employer's contribution.
Okay, now this is to Mr. Vincent Agaba. With these percentages in mind that Matthew has just said, if you've said from their personal it's 5%, and then from their employer
it's 10.
It's 10. So that's a total of 15% of their gross income going into the investment platform or going to NSF for investment opportunities. Yeah. At what age bracket is someone able to come and be able to recuperate some of their savings?
They have the option to get 20% of their money at 45 years if they have been saving consistently for at least 10 years.
Okay. So that means someone has to be employed for 10 years for this to work for them. Yes. A period of 10 years, and that is at the age of 45 for them to be able to get 25%.
And then at 55, you can get the entire amount.
20% at 45.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Agaba, currently today, how many Ugandans have contractual jobs that actually have proper guidelines on their salary and payment schedules? How many Ugandans fall under that? Before you answer how many Ugandans fall under that, how many Ugandans today actually understand that they are liable to 20% of their NSSF savings at the age of 45? And how many Ugandans today can be able to say 20% at the age of 45 can help me invest in ABCD? And when, after Vincent answers that, back to you, Matthew, how do you actually advise them that this 20% can be invested in ABCD that is basically to support them?
Thank you, Christabel. The issue of statistics, how many, I will leave that to you, boss, because they should be able to tell us really how many of these demographics work. But what I know is that it's not a big population, because exactly. You already know that at least 60% of our population is youth.
Yes.
So that benchmark gives me already a statistic that probably if you are remaining with about 40%, now if you look at those who are employed in a formal employment, out of the 40%, you could be talking to maybe a third of the 40%. That's my guess, given the youth employment and so forth. So there I give you an indication. But for me, I think what is important for me now is, one, I want to put a disclaimer to Matthew's submission, which is very critical. NSSF, its mandate is not to build housing for the savers. The mandate of NSSF is to grow the savings of the savers, and they invest in those viable investments that increase that saving in order for these savers to thrive financially. So what happens is that me, the saver, what do I use my savings for example, if I reach mid-term access? That's the point. If, for example, I got Smart Life and my money has multiplied, how do I invest that money into real estate as one of the investment vehicles, as opposed to any other investment? That's what I would like to speak to. So what I'm saying is that, for example, I think NSSF did a survey some time back, and they were asking savers, if you receive your money at 45, what are the priorities? I think those who were actually having children still in school said, we want to complete school fees for our children. The second was, we want to do housing, right? Now, the question for me, if you have wanted to enter into real estate as an investment vehicle, one of the things is that let us be modest in our investment. Consult professionals, number one. Number two, build what you can finish with your money. That's my advice. And I'm backing this up with evidence. You go through this city, you see how many buildings are unfinished. And you ask yourself, what is the reason? Why is someone starting a building and reaching third floor and the building is not finished? In principle, you're locking money. You've put up a building, you've reached third floor, you have not even put doors and windows and whatever, and then you're stuck. My principle for me would be, if I get my 40 million, can you work with professionals to build something with 40 and finish it so that you start earning from it? We all have dreams that once upon a time I wanted to own a tower. But today I have 50 million. 50 million cannot build a tower, but it can build for me two, they call them mizigos, 1 bedroom, self-contained 2 units in a certain place. And let's be modest and do them well, according to plan. And I start earning 300,000 shillings rent per month from a tenant. My 50 million has built for me, I'm in a real estate industry. I have built 2 units of 300,000 each, finished them, gotten my 2 tenants, and they are paying for me 600,000 shillings per month. And with infrastructure development in that area, with the increase of population in that area, appreciation will happen. Because according to the Landlord Tenant Act, rent can be increased by 10% escalation per year.
Per year, yes.
So it means if I'm having 600,000 today, next year, keeping other factors constant, it can be 660,000. So I have gotten my smart life saving, or I have gotten my mid-term access, taken part of it into real estate. It's appreciating per year. Maybe a portion has remained as smart life.
Still appreciating.
And then my finance is growing.
Yes.
That is what NSSF is able to help us to do with our savings at NSSF and also investing in some channels like Smart Life. But the issue of how you use that money and personal appetite is at our level. Because the issue here is if you build a building and you put in money and you don't finish, you are also finished at the same time because you cannot liquidate that concrete.
Yes.
I submit.
But how is NSSF actually teaching the wider masses out there about these investment portfolios or these investment opportunities? I understand, yes, we're right now live. This is one of those platforms we're using to teach them. But this is a platform that is catering to the elite. Okay? Now, for example, there's a person out there who doesn't know about a webinar, doesn't understand anything to do with a webinar, but they can actually afford to invest with, NSSF. They have the funds to invest in NSSF, but they know nothing about it. What extra measures is NSSF taking to actually educate these masses?
I'll give my 2 cents on that, but I also want Apple in his closing remarks to give a more detailed breakdown of that. But I know, even from where I sit, that part of the financial literacy program are actual outreach programs. They're actually going out there to meet the people that maybe are not logging into YouTube to watch this or putting on the TV to watch this. So there's an actual department that's fully staffed, that continues to get staffed and resourced, that is out there. But remember, our primary mandate isn't necessarily to advise, right? I like the words that you've used. It's educate, right? It's give people the tools, give them the direction for where to go to seek further knowledge and information. Hopefully in the show notes for this video will be links to the different professional programs, to professional bodies where people can go and look at the actual lists of people that have practicing certificates, engage those people directly, go find those offices. So the financial literacy program is robust. It continues to be. I hope this is the first of many real estate edition conversations because, like I said, it's such a multidisciplinary asset class. I hope there'll be further series that engage actual developers. We can direct our questions to them and all our frustrations. They can tell us what they want the government to do for them, because it's also in their best interest that they deliver more and more relevant products
to the right? Consumer. Yes.
So yeah, we will. My suggestion to the financial literacy team would be to have more conversations such as this, because if we're being honest, one session was enough for financial assets, right? Shares and bonds, okay, 1 or 2, right? But real estate demands more attention, demands more input from the various stakeholders and professionals in the space. So I give credit to the fund and the financial literacy team for not only educating but continuing to educate and innovate in this space. Yeah.
Vincent, someone says rent to own is a good idea, but the amount supposed to be paid in form of rent is for the rich people in Uganda and we cannot afford it, most of us Ugandan. So how is rent to own then being sold as a product for the middle income person?
Again, that is an issue of enjoying the economies of scale, we call it. All these things, mass production. It's only through mass production that you can lower the cost of housing. The moment that we are still building a few units and so forth, that segment, for now, it's going to be very difficult to crack. As I said before, even if NSSF is trying their best to collaborate, to partner with these off-takers and all these kind of things, as long as the other players are not kicking in to ensure that the things that actually the developer needs to lower down the cost, including infrastructure, including utility, including all these other things that are a common good, not actually private to the private developer, that is not going to unlock the issue of affordability. Number two, the issue of rent to own is again tied to the product. So if the rent to own on a studio will be lower than the rent to own to a mansionette and to a villa. And location becomes also critical. A rent to own in, for example, Kajansi will be probably lower than a rent to own in Kololo. So these are factors that we need to consider as we're building this. So it's not generally that it's very expensive. It's again about location, it's about partnerships, it's all about this. But the beauty is there is something that is happening. Because 20 years ago, when I was entering this sector, these conversations were not happening. Now, just diverting from that, I would like to suggest that owning a home does not to be in terms of quantity. A beautiful home does not mean how big it is.
Yes.
A beautiful home means how functional it is.
Yes.
You can have a 2-bedroom self-contained unit on your 25 decimals with a good flower garden, with a nice orchard behind it, and so forth, and you will have a beautiful home. This business of us, we have to live in humongous homes, and then clocks in at 65 years, all your children have left you, and you're in a building whereby you're sitting in the sitting room, and your bed is on the other side of the plot. Insecurity kicks in. If you have 3-storied, your knees are aching, you can no longer climb up, and then now you flood it to the market, and you look for a tenant to afford that house, cannot be found. So the question is, how do we make sure that also when we are building our homes, the idea of a big home, because you can actually postpone owning a home for years when you could have built a small, modest home and you're living comfortably. And again, offloading to the market when you want to leave it will be easier for you to rent it. Those who have money can build those homes because they can multiply and do many things. But I would encourage Ugandans, in my view, the savers of NSSF, if your dream is to have a home, build a functional home, not a big home.
Matthew, this goes to you. You spoke about different platforms of investment, and you said NSSF is here to advise and educate on how you can invest, with the money that comes back that is being put into the investment hubs that you have. So basically, you're just educating them on what they can use their funds for, on how you can support them on how to facilitate their funds and use them, right? But someone is asking and saying, real estate currently in Uganda seems like the safest form of investment. You talked about, I actually didn't hear that, I guess I missed it. You talked about agricultural real estate. I didn't hear that part. But they quote and say, you talked about agricultural real estate, but currently in Uganda, it feels safer to do real estate investment. They are asking, could you break down further on what you meant by agricultural real estate?
Okay. So I just simply meant the subsector within real estate being the agricultural subsector, which is farmland and things of that nature. So an actual farm can't be considered residential land. It's an agricultural land, right? And its rate of appreciation will be different from the rate of appreciation for what is traditionally residential land. And we'll speak to that in a bit. Just one clarification. NSF does not advise. I think the takeaway here, educate, yes, through the financial literacy program and conversations like this, but the financial advisory side of things should be done by another professional, a financial advisor, right? A CMA licensed financial advisor, someone who takes your specific circumstances into consideration, right? Are you 25, been working 3 years, and you have goals? Are you 55, approaching retirement, and you have goals? So the advice given to people is very person specific and should be guided by a professional. Our job is just to point you in the right direction, give you the methods are many, but the principles are few. So our job is to give you the overarching principles, which are save, spend less than you earn, find profitable use of your savings through the very structured, proper advice given by professionals. And in the real estate investment space, my job is to tell you who those professionals are and where you can find them. Okay. And the statement made that real estate is the safest, there are many people in the market that will potentially disagree with
yes.
you. It's you can argue government paper is perhaps the safest form of investment, because worst case scenario, the government will print money and pay you back. So real estate is like any other asset class, comes with its risks, okay? And the difference between those who have a decent time at it, or those who have a good experience with it, is what prudent steps did you take? What, while you are acquiring, while you are developing, while you are gaining exposure to the asset class, what steps did you take? Okay, that's what makes it attractive. But yes, it's a fantastic inflation hedge. Even in lockdown, people are still paying rent because they had to live somewhere. The number of homeless people didn't increase during the lockdown. You had to be somewhere. But remember, back to the point, some asset classes suffered during the lockdown, right? People cut back on office space, people cut back on retail space, you know. Not much was being collected at Garden City because no one had to go, right? So yes, so you have to think about the different subsectors differently. Some are affected more by the war in Ukraine, some are affected less. Okay? Some are affected more by a lockdown, some are affected less. They have different value drivers and different features. Okay, so if you just don't think about it broad, you can't make a sweeping statement like real estate is fantastic. You also can't make a sweeping statement that real estate is terrible.
It's terrible, true.
Yeah.
Do Ugandans have a say on how NSSF uses their funds in investment?
No. We are again mandated through the Act to act in your best interest. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the members. Your job is to save, and the fund's job is to prudently invest, ensure safety and the real growth of your funds. In 401ks in the US, the saver has an input in where their money goes, you know. Here, our job is just to prudently do it on your behalf. And yes, in the previous financial literacy webinar, there was a conversation about, a similar question came up about, I mean, if I have religious objections to you putting money in BAT, which is tobacco, you know. So from our side of things, we just try to prudently invest, because the number one thing is the safety and the real growth of your funds.
Why is NSSF real estate investment only prioritizing Kampala? What is the plan for upcountry, especially the new cities like Mbale? I live in Mbale and I would love to take part in investment.
In 2016, which is now 10 years ago, myself and a few people in the projects team did a countrywide road trip. And at the time, what we were trying to do was carry out site identification for what we're now calling city houses. Since then, we now have 3 fully developed office commercial projects in Mbara, in Jinja, and in Mbale. And the thinking is, again, go back to our primary mandate, right? Collect, prudently invest. Ensure diversification by putting money in different buckets, as a prudent pension fund would. Fixed income, equities, and real estate. So within the real estate space, again, we find which subsectors perform decently, okay? Now, it's no secret that Kampala is the main urban center of the country, right? Meaning the project that I do here has a greater probability of success, right? That my prediction of future performance is closer to the truth. So it's prudent to develop office blocks here, residential projects here, and things of that nature. In the upcountry locations, because again, the government, our country is really government spending led. Our GDP is government spending led, right? So not much infrastructure has happened in those rural urban spaces. So for now, we're dipping our toe. They say you test the depth of the water with 1 foot, right? By putting up 2,000 square meters of office space in what we term as growing upcountry urban locations. Those that were municipalities are now becoming cities. Those we will explore having office spaces there. And then when the demand, because it has to be demand led, it has to be market led, because I have to make the member money by putting, so that this gentleman in Mbale potentially wants a residential product. What use is it to build 100 homes and he's the only one that takes one? So when the demand demands a particular use in a particular area, we will, and we have framework contracts of different valuation firms on retainer. We're constantly keeping abreast of the market and what's happening.
Mr. Vincent, other than the exorbitant tax rates in real estate and the new ones that have just come on board right now, that the public is still trying to understand and take in, how else is the government and the other institutions actually helping to make real estate in Uganda more of an achievable desire or need?
Thank you for that question. Just wanted to comment on the issue of the agricultural land product before I come to that question. Some of us who come from rural areas, you know that actually you can have land and rent it out to a maize grower. And that maize grower will pay you rent for that land per month for you cultivating on your land. So agricultural land real estate portfolio happens that if you have a piece of land, your job is to ensure that you have the utilities or the enablers that allow agriculture to thrive on your land, and open it up for people who don't have land but want to practice agriculture, and they will pay you rent per month or per annum in order to do agriculture activities on your land. You are in real estate, but focusing on agricultural land. That happens informally in rural areas, but it can be actually professionalized to a level that these big landlords, instead of keeping the land idle, they can actually turn it around to these people who want to use it for agricultural productivity. I hope, Matthew, that's the description to it. Now, the tax regime and what government is doing with Christabel, I would like to appreciate government in a way. One is that the regulatory framework, if you look at the value chain for real estate, most of the value chain of the professionals that participate in the real estate sector, the lawyers, the architects, the civil engineers, the surveyors, all that line is highly regulated in terms of their professional bodies and also the bodies that actually oversee what they do, with the exception of the real estate agents. And the real estate agents meaning managers and those who sell and rent out on behalf, called brokers locally. Those are not yet professionally regulated, although efforts have been made with the introduction of programs at universities, like, for example, bachelor's degree in real estate management at Makerere University Business School. Uganda Matters University has one, and also Victoria University has one, because you cannot regulate a profession before you have the education to it. So that is pending, and that's why here there is also a real estate bill at the Ministry of Land and Housing to ensure that this group is also regulated. Now, there has been a debate about can you regulate a developer? A developer is an investor. A developer is an investor. NSSF is an investor, is a developer. What they need is to ensure that these other professions around the development are all regulated, and from they bring in the money, and these people do the work. So the developer, you can't necessarily regulate it, but you can do standards of making sure that they build to standards. So the building control, you remember there has been that in a few months ago, there was a building control that came up into the media and so forth, is to really enforce and ensure that the buildings that are put in place are up to standard. Now, that complements the effort of a developer to ensure that buildings are not collapsing, they're built in not in road reserves, and all these kind of things. So the real estate managers and agents are not interrelated. So government has done some good work there. The other one the government has done is, of course, now the ensuring that actually the foreign direct investment is participating. Because you see today, most of our developers that have come in are not local. Although they have done something, you have seen these all off-plan
Projects that are coming up, yes.
If you look at all these players, they are not domestic. So that is allowed to come in. But the quality control issue has to be emphasized. And you cannot do quality control without having an overseeing institution that actually tells these people to do and what not to do. So that is missing. And I think the ministry is also working on that to ensure that it's done. So over and above, pension funds like NSSF, this is partially a government entity. It's playing in the sector. Housing Finance Bank is there, capitalizing, and all these kind of institutions. What we need now and yesterday is coordination. Because once we are coordinating, even the taxman will be told that, look, don't look short term. If you allow mass production, you will collect more. The game of cumulative effect.
Yes.
So in principle, instead of focusing on a few being developed, partner with the NSSF, partner with the Housing Finance Bank, partner with the UDCL and National Water, or go and develop that land that's remaining of NSSF in Ulvoa and open up that, and then taxpayer man.
How approachable is NSSF in partnering to actually let you develop their land or let you mass produce on their land?
No, I believe NSSF, if it got partnerships that allow it to lower the cost of construction and make it viable for that project to happen in order for them to make money for their savers, they would cooperate because they need to make money for their savers. They're not interested in idle land and remaining vacant. I hope Matthew can.
Yeah, use the word idle, but
well, to the layman out there, they feel it's idle land.
It's appreciating, but yes.
Land also has a source of return, which is the capital gain over time.
Yes.
That capital gain is captured every year,
exactly.
And that interest is credited to members' accounts. So to that last point of how flexible are we with collaborating with private developers, 100% flexible, right? But again, because NSSF is the member owns that land. And his expectation of us is that we go through a structured way, because you just don't partner with anyone. You can just, briefcase guy walks into the place and then, I have an idea for your land. This is what I can do. So it has to be in a structured manner, right? You send out expressions of interest, people submit, you pre-qualify them based on their capacity to execute their vision, and then you go ahead and partner, right? So at some point, we'll send out expressions of interest for schools, for hospitals, for other social amenities that are on the master plan, and that we want fully actualized, because our goal isn't just to have the master plan for the sake of having it. It's to effectively bring that dream to reality.
In my last
I agree, it's not idle, because land in itself
appreciates.
So I meant in terms of not having buildings on it.
Indeed.
Okay. Now, in my last parting questions to Vincent, before I ask Matthew the last question, Vincent, are we building homes or just investment assets in Uganda?
Yeah, interesting question. Yeah, I would say real estate goes beyond homes. It goes through all the value chain. Even a school is a real estate asset. Even a hospital, even a church and a mosque. It's the perspective on how we integrate these things. Because I can assure you, for you to live in a comfortable home, Christabel, yes, you need a church where you go to pray, you need a school where you take your kids, you need a theater in the neighborhood where you go to watch a movie, you need everything. You need a restaurant where you go to eat some food, you need a petrol station where you go to fuel your car. So that ecosystem. So the question is, are we building those speaking to each other or not? My answer for today is not that we don't have integrated, self-contained neighborhoods. Until that happens, whether it's an asset or a home, I don't think that we have an integrated process that a human being, Ugandan, can feel that I can live in a neighborhood whereby my cost of living is lowered by the mobility that I make to access different services in different locations.
And then to Matthew, you believe that NSSF having a threshold of having an age limit of 45 years to be able to attain their first income from NSSF, I won't call it income, to obtain their first savings out of NSSF is actually a fair age bracket to the Ugandan population currently and the age bracket in Uganda currently?
I personally, not speaking for the fund, I think it's fair because remember, we have a fiduciary responsibility, and fiduciary responsibility means that there's a higher duty of care that I owe the member. When you walk into a car dealership, the car salesman just, doesn't care about your personal circumstances, doesn't care about your income levels, the number of people in your household. His motivation is to sell you the most expensive car because his remuneration is based on sales, right? So he doesn't have a duty of care to you. Financial advisors and people that manage your money have a duty of care, a fiduciary responsibility to you. So our number one primary motivation for even just the principle of mandatory. Why does mandatory exist? The mandatory exists because, for lack of a better word, you're trying to save people from their base desires, which is consumption and which is just use the money for other things. So I'll forcefully take it, I'll prudently invest it, and I'll give it to you after a long enough period of time. I'll give it to you after a significant portion of time has passed, allow it to accumulate to a significant portion to minimize the risk. There's a risk in finance called longevity risk, which is the risk that you will outlive your assets. That's the risk that we're trying to mitigate. In your later life, when you're not as vibrant and as you were in your younger days, when you're not working, you still need a source of income, and the hope is that lump sum creates an annuity that lets you live a decent life in your later years. And credit to the fund for not only fulfilling that mandate, in my opinion, but also going a step further with the financial literacy program and taking it upon themselves to educate the masses so that they make better decisions. Because I read a very disturbing stat. The motivation behind this was that 90% of people that received their money lost it in the first 2 years, which you would think the person, we did our job, we gave you a large piece of retirement package. What you did with it after wasn't our concern. But no, the fund is going a step further. It is our concern. We do care how you use the money. So 45 is fair. In the previous webinar before this, there was a segment, and I encourage all the viewers to watch it, that discussed compounding and the power of compound interest, the eighth wonder of the world. Compounding is truly powerful when you allow for time.
Yes.
Okay? Yes. So yes, 45 is good, 55 even better. And even those at 45, I encourage you to leave your money, allow it to compound, allow it to grow. Keep looking out for those financial literacy. Stay with the program, right? Keep getting engaged and seek as much information as possible.
The viewers would like, if you do not mind, for Mr. Vincent and Matthew to share your email addresses with them. That is, if you do not mind. I believe they would like to have more information passed on to them. That is a request from the viewers. Yes. I don't know if those can be added on the screens. Yeah. Okay. I guess I don't know if Mr. Master Sa is still availing me more time, or because I keep seeing him look at me with this look.
No. We actually haven't closed.
Okay.
We need to answer some questions, and you are now joining the seat of panelists.
Okay.
Because we also need to hear from you. You have been asking and removing gloves of people. Thank you so much.
It was only one question where I took them off.
No, quite. You never put them back on. So it's been a punching process. You've made Matthew earn his money. He's highly paid, but he has also really represented.
And yet I kept the gloves on for Matthew.
Thank you so much, Christabella. Thank you so much, Murphy. Thank you so much, Vincent. We are going on the last segment, and I just needed to. There are quite a number of things there. Everyone is. Thank you for the perspective that you brought in. I just needed to answer to a few questions and then get back to this esteemed panel of panelists now this time, including Christabella. On NSSF mandate, our mandate is clear. Take money from people, keep it away from them, and give it to them when they are eligible. Our purpose, on the other hand, goes beyond mandate. Our purpose is to make lives better by making savings a way of life. But that does not take away your responsibility. NSSF doing this, taking away money from you and keeping it and growing it for you, does not take away your responsibility. If you're on the mandate side, on the mandatory side, you are actually all we're taking away is 5%. 95% is remaining with you. 30% goes to you to taxes, and then 65% is in your pocket. So what are you doing with that 65%? And very many times when I ask these people, people say, we have responsibilities, we have children to take care of. And my question is, whose responsibility would it have been for those children to be taken care of? So you need to cut the coat according to your cloth. You may not put the pressure, all your other things on the 5% that you're saving with NSSF. However, the economy is understood. Everything is not as rosy as we may make it seem. So we need to make accommodations. However, do not compromise your future because you need to make an accommodation right now. So when they say you can access money at 45, it's not a mandate, it's a suggestion. You can, you should, if you need to. But if you don't need to, please push it forward. Money grows on time, Christabel. It doesn't grow. We grew up hearing that thing. Money doesn't grow on trees. No one ever told us where it grows. Actually, money grows on time. When you give money time, money will grow. So you take a lot of time making your money. You need to give it time to consume it. So at 45, we even feel like you haven't given it that much time. However, 20%, take it. Test. Get to do some things. And when at 55 you come back, you have either learned a lesson or you have articulated that art of what you're doing, and then come take the rest. People don't lose money at 55 because it's been given to them at 55. People lose money at 55 because from age 23, they were getting a salary and losing the salary. They have kept on doing that over and over their lifespan. For 35 years, 30 years, all they know is get money, money goes out. You have just been a conduit of money. So when you get your NSSF check, it's a bigger check. Your muscles are already oriented into that money will come in and that money will flow out. So why we do this, why NSSF does this, is we are trying to challenge your financial muscle, and I hope you get in there. How do we, someone asked about, I am in Chiwoga. You people used to come and, yes, these things actually going on. What we are doing today is just one of the things we do. But right now what is happening, we are now in Kole, right now as I speak. We are in Chiyandongo, we are in Masulita, just right now as I speak. We are doing village town halls, we are doing community under the tree. We are going to sub-counties. You can actually invite us if we have not come to you yet. You can just invite us, call up our toll-free number and say, I need this to happen for my community. NSSF will do this. It's not a free service. People mistake it for a free service. This is paid for by you, our member and our prospective member. You are just not using it. So if you're not consuming these services, you are paying for them and not consuming them. So please, we are available. We are not financial advisors. We are not financial planners. We are not, because that's not our license. What we are doing is just being of purpose. And our biggest comfort here, our biggest strength here is we know the people who can do the things for you. If you are to get into agriculture, real estate, we know Vincent, we know Matthew. If you are to get into maggot farming, we know Dr. Naluyima. We know the people. That is our biggest strength. And that we use this mandate to actually get you to those persons. Allow me to just go back to these persons. And for me, this is personal. And I'll start with Christabella, then I'll go and end with Matthew. Matthew is, when on this panel, Matthew is the planned kid. Buzigo. Basically, I have seen people actually where I live, everywhere I pass, we know we have been talking about real estate, and the persons probably when they talk about real estate, the landlords who have a train of 10 one bedrooms. You know, a one bedroom, and when I talk about a one bedroom, I'm not Christabel, just for information. One bedroom does not mean it's an apartment of one bedroom. No, it is one room. You enter and everything is there. It is actually self-contained because the pit latrine is nearby. That is our bit, and the well is nearby. And I've seen quite a number of townships doing this. I just wanted to pick a bit of your insights on whether this is, I can have my 50 million and put it in 5 of those, 10 of those. Do you think it's a viable? I'm just picking your insights, not, I don't want to hold you against them, but
No, sure.
what would you think? Because I am here thinking, and Matthew's telling me about Nsimbe and Luboa, and I'm saying, yes, Luboa, thank you, are coming up, but I'm also, can I put money here? What do you think about them?
I'm not going to openly disagree with them because there are people out there who have them, and I do not want to actually offend anyone, but I will openly say that they are not the right aspect to Uganda's real estate industry.
Okay.
And they're not something that I would actually stand and fend for today. Because first and foremost, most of them are not done to standard. Secondly, they are not to the pedigree of the country. And then to also the human that is inhabiting them. They are not facilitating their needs, neither are they functional to them.
Okay.
Yes, so I wouldn't agree with them. And in the long run, they're not a worthy investment opportunity when it comes to real estate.
Okay.
Because 5 years from now, no one is going to want to rent them.
Okay.
So at this moment, you might invest in them, and they might have a tenant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. But even the person, no offense to the border riders out there, but even to a border rider who can afford a unit of 200,000 right now, wants to be able to afford a nice property 6 months from now. Okay? So 2 years, 3 years from now, you're going to be out of business because you wanted to, I wouldn't even call it invest safe. I'll say you wanted to just
invest cheap.
I won't say invest cheap because
by the
time someone gets
like
50 million, by the time someone gets 50 million and that's their life saving, that's not investing cheap. But I would say investing without knowledge.
All right.
Okay? By the time someone invests without knowledge and invests in that, then you're not doing the right investment. And it's watered down, it's money down the drain.
Vincent,
Yes, please.
with those words in mind, how can we bring this particular industry? I know, and I asked this because sometime we had a discussion and you told me of some success stories coming around that. How can we bring this particular segment to the point where it's recognizable or it is actually viable? Because when we do quite a lot of outreach, and when you are in Bulambuli, when you are in Otuke, when you are in Kole, you will find that persons, the upgrade is to go into a rental of 20,000. That's what, and they say this boy has made money. He's even able to rent in the town, and the rent, what they're talking about, is 20,000 a month. So while on the other side of town, side of the country, things are different. So what are those things, the initiatives that we need to be looking at so that we start looking at that particular bit?
Mr. Headmaster, sir, one thing I want to start from is that the forces of demand and supply determine the market. So what you are seeing is actually a reflection of the market. What you are seeing is a reflection of the demand. Because if there was no demand, this supply of these units would not be working. So that is a total reflection of affordability, of our income levels, of how people, lifestyles and income levels are. So the question is here, I would not encourage anyone to do an illegality in this country. There must be zoning laws and land use laws in those local jurisdictions. So if this developer who is building these rooms you have described, that they actually self-contained because the pit latrine is nearby and the well, are they complying with the local regulations of that setting? And if they're not complying with the demand in our eyes, you know, we can hide our head in the sand, they cannot stretch where the rest of the body is out there. Then as a country, the question would be, how do we make sure that this demand level is still accommodated within safety and health standards of living in those units? I play in that industry as a real estate manager. What you're talking about is predominant. Just move from here. You go to Kamoch, and there is a place called Chifumbera. Go to Chibuli, across. We're not talking about something very far away. Chibuli. There is Chibuli, upper side, you go Chibuli, the lower side. What you are describing is actually within a few meters from here. You see people entering into their unit, and you wonder even the breathing, the public health issues, how are they working? But that is prime land, Chibuli. So the question is, the demand is there. People need where to sleep. So what do we do to help these people build, the landlords who are building these units, to build them to a certain standard one-bedroom unit according to our prescription? So now, again, my question is between me and you, all of us here. Who is supposed to do that? Is it the headmaster, sir? Is it Matthew? Is it Christabel? Or is it Vincent Agaba? The answer lies in the local authorities to enable these so-called developers who want to participate in providing housing for the population to do the right thing. So small houses are not bad. The point is, are there guidelines to ensure that these small houses are built to standards? Because the demand is there. I can assure you, if a house is about 250,000 up to 500, you will not have vacancy rates throughout the year. It's true.
Yes.
Actually, you shift today, in the next 2 hours, a new tenant is entering.
Just the room of that you're moving.
The room around
Someone already has cleared 3 months up front before you even decide to move.
Exactly. So
They're already chasing you out.
Yes.
So now, what do you do when there is demand? Even if, that's why I'm telling you that even when we were seeing that the city was exploding from Kiwatu Lentinda to far towards Gayaza, the demand, people were buying plots at the highest speed. Now, the quality control part is following after people have reached. I'm not blaming anyone here, but I'm saying the issue is we must look at the population. The housing census takes place every year, according to you, boss. We must interpret the numbers and make sure that this demand is accommodated. It is the issue now of border borders, for example, if I could divert a bit. People have appreciated the speed, the fastness of reaching neighborhoods at a higher speed. Now, you go and stop these younger people today to use border borders. Even if you line up taxis are free. You can say they are a receiver, they are whatever, but the guy wants to reach Lubowa in less than 15 minutes. They are no longer having the patience to sit in a taxi for 1 hour, which is stopping at every stage. So we need to deal with the demand. People of 300,000, 250 people, 400 and up to 500 people, they are massive in this city. And the income levels are clear. You leave university, your first job, your salary is 500,000 shillings.
Sure.
So if I have 500,000 shillings, rent should not consume more than 50% of my salary. So where am I going to sleep? I will go to 150.
True.
And 150 is being provided for by some mama person who is making tea in Valkudeme market, but has put up those units somewhere in the neighborhood. People occupy them.
Thank you, Vincent. And finally, I called Matthew the plant kid. I don't know, what thoughts would you have around this?
No, my sentiments align with this. We have an almost moral obligation to not forget the health and safety aspect of it. So we can't be seen endorsing. But like I said earlier, in the conversation, the methods are many, the principles are few. 50 million is 50 million. Where to put it? As an investor, you just need to decide where is my return coming from? Coming from rental income and capital gain, and if that segment of the market, without endorsing it, if that segment of the market fits your risk and return expectations, then more power to you.
Thank you so much. The methods are many, the principles are few. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't save money, that's a principle. Money won't save you. Now you can argue with that, but it's a principle, and you do not have that much longer life to get to find out if you have disproved the principle. No, the principle is there. Gravity, when you throw a stone up, it will always come down. It's a principle. It doesn't need your permission. You don't need to debate it. It's not a political color. It's a fact. If you don't save money, money won't save you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not add to your knowledge, if you do not have the right skills, the right habits, the right attitude, you are just, everything else you are just chasing for free. With those words, Christabel, we have homework here. Christabel, I want you to hear her answer. Christabel?
Yes, Headmaster, sir.
Thank you. We have homework here. What is that one book? Matthew has already given us a book, so he's going to give us another, a podcast, a billboard, a reading, an article. What is that one thing you would want these people to read that would make their lives better in terms of finances, in terms of their own lives?
The one I would say offhand, I'm sure most have read it, but I won't give a sweeping blanket. I would advise or suggest Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Why I advise that? It's 360 when it comes to investment, saving, world lifestyle, and all the things that most of us Ugandans actually want to be like. Yes, so why I advise it is, it may not really be real estate only, but it shows you the benefit of saving and investing right. And some of the investing right, it shows you what kind of real estate will actually make financial sense to you in the long run, and which real estate is just real estate to keep in your money or safe real estate investment. That's why I would advise that book.
Thank you so much. Matthew, Babylon, yes, richest man in Babylon, but now you need to give us another. You stole exams.
I'll leave you with a quote instead.
Okay.
And I like this quote for many reasons. It speaks to the theme for this entire thing. And the quote by some wise fellow whose name I forget is, "Our actions can be no wiser than our thoughts, and our thinking can be no wiser than our understanding." So a prudent investor's goal should always be improve my understanding, and the ripple effect will be that my actions are improved, but my prudent decision making is better. And how do you improve your understanding? Go and engage with professionals. You'd be surprised how freely they will give you, because people like talking about what they do. They'll give you so much information for free. You don't have to actually engage the professionals by saying, "Yeah, I'll pay you this for this," but just go out there, walk the streets, talk to the surveyors, the valuers, the architects, the engineers. If you're passionate about real estate, get your feet dirty, right? Get on the road, improve your understanding.
And I am amazed how generous Ugandans can be with information. You just go and sit in the trading center, and the brokers will break down the properties in the area by price, by everything, and they will tell you about the upcoming. But don't take their word for it. You are gathering knowledge. Gather and then go and verify. Vincent, what is that one thing?
Mr. Headmaster, sir, I believe in real-time things. I think this financial literacy, for me, we are reading real books in real time. Let everyone watch this financial literacy of NSSF, hear things and consume them right away. This business of sitting home, and I know our reading culture is also a bit challenging. Personally, you read a book, half the book, you are dozing, you're waking up. But when you come to this kind of session, I mean, you see, you realize, you follow through, and so forth. So thank you to you, Headmaster Sir, for this literacy NSSF initiative. We are interacting with the people live, and I'm thinking that the best knowledge, go to as many forums as possible. I remember myself, if I could just continue a bit, I was just sometimes crashing into workshops. If you go, for example, to a hotel today, there is always a screen there of showing which workshop is taking place. You just read through, you see this is about NSSF literacy, this one is about capital markets and so forth. And surprisingly, these forums, they're always lacking attendance. When you show up, actually you say, "I'm here, but I was not invited," whatever, they say, oh, enter. You sit there, you listen, you get information, you even get tea and coffee. And eventually you go a different person. So let's not keep in our homes. Let's go and learn and get information. But Mr. Headmaster, sir, give me 1 minute to just say one thing.
Please.
this Kibuli land with all these units which we are talking about for a lower person can be changed. Imagine those landlords who own that land of that whole Kibuli through the REIT system which Matthew was talking about. If those landlords were mobilized and we said we are going to build here a 20-storied block of apartment, and your piece of land will qualify you to own a number of apartments in this block, and we make sure that the infrastructure, the garbage, the network around that complex is all streamlined, people will still live in a unit of 1 bedroom, this time a toilet not outside, and a well not the other side, but in a complex of 5,000 apartments and still pay relatively 300,000 shillings.
Okay.
But to do that, again, collective effort. You need an investor like NSSF who is enabled to mobilize those landlords and bring in the capitalization, build 20,000 units, and the numbers, but you can support me here. If we went to do the numbers, they can work.
Okay.
But the willingness and the collaboration is what we need to unlock these high-level locations, high-rise. Let's build vertical. We cannot allow those units saturating such a prime area because you can actually condense them and densify them in almost half of the land.
And well, I'm going to give you the, and well said, the willingness. I'm sure Matthew sits here and has no objection, but the willingness, because the minute he gets up and says, I'm NSSF, can we do something? The English changes. All of a sudden, everyone now says, no, now my thing is 20 billion. But please.
To actually...
And these are our parting shots.
To add more to what he has said, which I highly agree with him, because then it would help so much to give us a more developed city or a more developed Uganda or a better functioning Uganda. But looking at the landlords that own that part of Chibuli that we are looking at, that you described earlier on, how many of those landlords actually understand the benefits that NSSF is providing them? Or how many of those landlords actually are able to partner with NSSF, given NSSF's guidelines or their driving agenda and requirements? How many of them are able to participate? We have to look at that also, because majority of these are either people that maybe got land from their ancestors and their ancestors lived in such a setting then, and to them that was development, and they have carried it on from then to today. So how many of those actually even go the extra mile of saving with NSSF? Or how many of those actually understand investment beyond what they have currently? So we first have to look at that factor before we look at how we can gather them into one. Because if they understand that aspect, if they see the broader picture of that aspect, and if they do realize that this is not being taken from us, but it's actually being given back to us in a more revamped setting and better standard, then I think that would not be a problem. I think we would have been there already by today. But because of the fact that most of these do not actually even know what is governing them today, we are not able to push for that.
And ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to end this conversation, because now I feel like we are opening up another can of worms. And it's only in this classroom, for us, we always say action changes things. We need to take some action on this. 2 actions I want to leave you with. Number 1, you as an individual. We've been talking about governance, about governments, about this, about that. But you as an individual, you can start your investment journey through Smart Life. But also from this class, I see quite a bit of potential. So I'm going to give a command, since it's my class, that you have the full support of this class and its members. Let's organize those landlords. Let's put them in a room. Let's have this conversation. We need to start somewhere. We are not going to, I can promise we shall not agree in that room, but the first conversation will have been had.
Will have taken place.
Yes. We are happy to, I'm speaking this, and I'm speaking in front of the manager, the real estate manager. So I'm sure we shall meet somewhere, but let's get there. So landlords, if you're out there and you're watching this, watch out. In the next financial year, we'll probably look out and say, let's just discuss this with confidence. Let's sit somewhere and let's challenge ourselves I will make that happen. I will tell you, I have a very, very good team behind me. They will make this happen. We'll sit somewhere, and probably we'll even sit in different places. Let's sit in Boise, let's sit in Kalero, and then have this conversation. And then at one point we shall say, this is what came of it. We realize that yes, we are all having a smaller thing, and everyone wants to have 100% of a smaller thing. Or we got people who said, I want to have 1% of a much, much bigger thing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor and a privilege to occupy your 2 hours plus 15 minutes that you gave to us this morning. From NSSF, we thank you for your attendance. Hours to do the talking, but when you do the acting, you actually get paid. We get paid, and we are all happy. We need to move. I like what Matthew said. You start with an understanding which will govern your thoughts, which will govern your action. So if you are not acting, it's an indication that you lack an understanding of something, so you are not thinking of something. And if you are not thinking, ladies and gentlemen, I want to finish that statement. Have a great, great day. Thank you.